What's going on, peeps? Today I am finally talking about Mariana's. Serious? Mom, yo, what's up? What do you mean? Okay, so you need this. What are you saying? Chill out, Mom. Chill out, Mom. It's not a big deal. I'm not failing school. What do you need? Pomegranate? Oh, shoot. What's going on, peeps? A lot of people want to gatekeep their favorite bands. I'm the opposite. I wish more people knew about this band than they do. The more I've covered artists like Tally Hall, Twenty One Pilots, Weezer, and Jhariah, I've quickly realized my audience is a bunch of theater kids. No shame, if you are a theater kid and like any of the artists I just named, I think you'll very much enjoy the Canadian pop rock band based in Vancouver, Marianas Trench. No, I'm not talking about the Pacific Ocean Trench, aka the deepest known spot in the world. Fronted by the absolutely brilliant lead vocalist, multi-instrumentalist, songwriter, dancer Josh Ramsay. This band has been a hidden gem within Canada since their debut in 2006. It seems like they're only known in Canada. So how did a boy from Michigan like me discover them? Okay, to be fair, Michigan and Canada are basically connected if you take the wrong highway in Detroit. The day I discovered Marianas Trench was a moment I will never forget. It happened out of nowhere in 2019. I hate that I only found this group 5 years ago. I was listening to Hey Look Ma, I Made It by Panic at the Disco, and after that song ended, Spotify recommended a random song similar to the group after that, Who Do You Love by Marianas Trench. The moment I heard the angelic harmonic acapella intro, I was frozen in shock. I would usually skip the recommendations I got, but this caught my attention. I paused and reflected on what I just heard, saving it to my playlist immediately. I continued to listen to the entire song and was amazed by the infectious melodies, killer vocals from Mr. Ramsey, bittersweet lyrics hoping to be a better person to your lover, and the warm but uplifting production that just made me want to take on the world. After this, I began diving into their discography, not all at once, but listening to each album through the span of 2 years until I completely understood each one to move on to the next, because I discovered Mariana Trench's music isn't just a simple collection of songs. There is a story and depth to each album branching throughout their entire catalog. You have to start from the beginning to fully understand it all. There are specific progressive pieces in mind that will make no sense without context. I hope this is the experience you have when you listen to Marianas Trench for the first time. I swear this quartet is literally the most unproblematic band ever. No drama associated with them besides that attempt at a NFT set up by their label. Given the fact that I have way too much to say about this band, and they're incredibly important to me as a music lover, I'll be splitting this into 2 videos. The second half will be next week. I really want to get this right. So in these videos, I want to give you a glimpse into their ancient history and masterpiece of a discography. This is Marianas Trench, the best band you've never heard of. Joshua Keeler Ramsey was born on June 11th, 1985 in Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada. He is currently 39 years old. Ramsey grew up in a musical household on 1712 Acadia Road. That address will matter in a bit. Both of his parents were deeply involved in the music industry, meaning it wouldn't be surprising to hear jazz chord theory discussed at the dinner table. His mother, Corlin Haney, sang backup for Leonard Cohen and gave vocal lessons. His father, Miles Ramsey, composed commercial jingles and operated a recording studio in Vancouver, Little Mountain Sound Studios, where bands like Aerosmith, AC/DC, and Bryan Adams recorded their albums. This gave him a great place to live and a lot of opportunities at a young age. He was a voice actor throughout his childhood, but acting wasn't enough to satisfy Josh. He wanted to try out music, similar to his parents. By the age of 13, he could play 8 different instruments and had his first solo performance at 14 playing at a coffee shop. Josh and future bandmate Matt Webb were also tenor singers in their local choir. At home, Ramsey was teaching himself how to engineer his own music, creating symphonies using the same 16-track Nev console that Bryan Adams and Jim Vallance had used to compose Kids Wanna Rock in summer of '69. He then assembled his first backing band, Ramsey Fiction, that began his lifelong musical journey in 1999. Josh was the lead vocalist, obviously, rhythmic guitarist, and pianist. The band originally featured Ramsey's sister Sarah on keyboards and vocals, Steve Marshall as the lead guitarist, Eric Scott on drums, and Trev Spilshin on bass. The band put out only one demo CD in the 2000s called Cooler Than Me, featuring the earliest version of Primetime, and Still Angry that had a melody later used in Sing Sing from their second album. Despite all of this, Josh turned to some unfortunate habits. At the age of 16, he first tried heroin at a friend's party and then struggled with addiction for the next 2 years. He once referred to himself being arrested at the age of 17. He attended McGee Secondary School at the time but was eventually expelled in his senior year due to his addiction, only showing up to his music or acting related classes. Despite being kicked out, his school named him as a notable alumni. Ramsey has also dealt with alcoholism, bulimia, depression, and anorexia. Thankfully at 18, Ramsey voluntarily entered a recovery clinic in Nanaimo called Edgemont and successfully overcame his issues. During his time at a recovery center, he wrote a love letter to his addiction as part of an exercise. This eventually became the song Lover Dearest we'll discuss later on. He was able to turn his life around completely. He says those days taught him both patience and drive, later getting 2 tattoos that represent his struggle. After Ramsey Fiction didn't work out, obviously, Ramsey teamed up with his high school friend he sat next to in band class, Matt Webb, to form a new band in 2001. They found Ian Castleman through a Georgia Straight newspaper ad, with bassist Morgan Hempstead being added to the band as well. Scott, Spilson, and Sarah Ramsey were replaced, with Josh and Marshall being the remaining OG members. The 5 of them went through several name changes before finally choosing Marianas Trench. The band kind of agreed it was the best option after all the other options were taken. They neither loved nor hated it. It just kind of stuck after that. In 2002, the band recorded and released a self-titled EP, which includes songs that would later feature on their debut album Fix Me. It was apparently under Not Saying I'm Not Gay Music? Huh? Josh wrote most of his songs inspired by his personal pain, addiction, and various life challenges. He also experiences insomnia, and many of his songs were written during those sleepless nights. They performed at the New Music West Festival in May 2002 and held shows in Toronto at Tequila Lounge in June. Their performances caught the attention of several record labels, and they eventually signed with Jonathan Sinkin and Nickelback frontman Chad Kroeger's 604 Records on January 8th, 2003. Unfortunately, Hempstead and Marshall left the band in 2004, an issue resolved by Ian introducing them to his roommate bassist, Mike Ailey. Marianas Trench was now a quartet, and will be that way for the rest of the run. The band's official website was launched in early 2004, later named www.farfromhere.net. This included a forum, news, guestbook, and basically everything else you'd want. Beginning in 2005, the band began recording their debut album at Factory Studios and Mushroom Studios in Vancouver and at the Umbrella Factory in Richmond, British Columbia. The album centers on Ramsey's battle with drug addiction, containing this hard rock sound. As most bands did during the 2000s, Marianas Trench would join MySpace on January 28th to build their fan base, announce upcoming shows, and tease new material. Drawing heavily from what Josh playfully calls the gauntlet of rock, the band hoped to deliver powerful, hard-hitting guitar anthems. Their first single, Say Anything, came out on June 13th, 2006, and reached number 3 on the Canadian singles chart. It was leaked to their fan base before sending it over to radio stations ahead of its official release, and receiving major screen time on Much Music. Over time, Ramsey honed his creative vision with the help of various producers, including John Webster, Warren Livesey, Brad McGivern, and Chad Kroeger. But it was Dave Jen who co-produced Marianas Trench's album Fix Me and left a lasting impression. It was released on October 3rd, 2006. It didn't chart on the Canadian albums chart within its first week, but it would later sell 35,000 copies in Canada by 2014. Thankfully, the radio success continued. Their second single, Decide to Break It, was released on the same day as the album and peaked at number 14. The third and most popular single from this album, Shake Tramp, was released in September 2007 and earned a Juno nomination for Video of the Year in 2008. The band was touring across Canada, doing whatever it took to get their name out there. even living in a tightly packed van. The band could probably tell you several stories about that experience. Now that we've thoroughly discussed their come up, let's analyze their debut album, Fix Me. This is probably the least I have to say about their albums, which is saying a lot. It was clear the boys were just finding their sound. Pretty straightforward raw punk and hard rock sound palettes, packed to the brim with slamming percussion from Ian on Alive Again, slick guitar riffs and solos from Matt and Mike on Say Anything, Low in September, and, of course, a thrilling, electric vocal performance from Josh across the record, especially in Shake Tramp, Skin and Bones, and Vertigo, making the heartfelt ballad Alibi stand out, starting off with an acoustic guitar before ramping up in intensity as the track goes on. I also adore Decide to Break It for its ridiculous intro that I don't believe has been explained to this day. My guess is that the band was recording the track in the studio and Matt wasn't ready to begin, so he yelled, "What the fuck?" causing the rest of the band to laugh, before Josh tells him to play the part and counts down instead. All of the chaos made the recording. On the topic of the band members, you're gonna see not just Josh, but the rest of them join in on vocals throughout their albums in harmony. It makes tracks like Decide to Break It, Shake Tramp, September, Push, and Vertigo have a bigger sound. But what truly stands out is the heartbreaking lyrics inspired by Josh's addiction and struggles in the early 2000s. Josh wrote the song Push to communicate his emotions about being a heroin addict, cutting himself to feel something after his girlfriend left him behind on Say Anything. Vertigo seems to hint at self-harm too. It gets even more frightening on the closing track Skin and Bones, diving into his bulimia nervosa struggles, hoping to lose weight and shed the mental and physical burdens he feels, leaving him on his knees puking in the toilet, not expecting his habits to affect him this much on Push. This is also explored on Alibis about his eating disorder, substance abuse, and self-harm, trying to hide his flaws and bad habits from everybody else. Admitting this isn't the man he'd hoped to be. Hoping to break his addictions on Decide to Break It, find a way to fix himself on the title track after going through years of pain. More depressive cycles on Alive Again, Low, Far From Here in September. However, Shake Tramp is a unique one. By far the most loose cut here. Not only is it incredibly catchy and infectious, Josh managed to convince an entire generation to sing "They Slap You Like a Bitch and You Take It Like a Whore." Canadians are known for their foul mouths. In context, it's pretty much how artists get treated harshly by record labels in order to be successful. If you're looking for some of the rawest material, this is the record for you. Marianas Trench's popularity only increased as the 2000s came to a close. The news being, the band finally got their own tour bus. No more of that cramped van that broke down a few times apparently. The fans became known as Trenchers. I guess you could say they secured celebrity status, only in Canada. The United States was too obsessed with Panic and Fall Out Boy to care about a Canadian band. During this era, Josh made a connection with a small indie folk act I bet you've never heard of, Carly Rae Jepsen. He produced and featured on her song Sour Candy on her debut album. This will matter in a bit. Marianas Trench were back in the studio in 2008 after the industry was like, "You have 6 months to record your next album." Josh was like, "Fuck that, give me more time and I'll make a masterpiece." The result? Their first concept album. Spoiler warning. Ramsey was given permission by 604 to put together Masterpiece Theater. He took inspiration from Brian Wilson's idea of a pocket symphony, where there are 3 songs on this record named Masterpiece Theater that combine dramatic vocals of Queen with the harmonies of the Beach Boys. By the end, Josh wanted to somehow reference and woven each song on this album into a complex, theatrical performance that moves through different styles, from polished pop and energetic rock riffs to doo-wop influences, robotic new wave, and a thrilling, thematic, satisfying conclusion that will give you goosebumps. A climactic medley similar to classic musicals that took them 3 weeks to put together after writing all the songs for 2 years. This is why I told you at the beginning that you need to listen to this band in order by release. There's such a huge jump in quality and style, going from hard rock to something more theatrical while still keeping that punk rock aesthetic they started out with. Masterpiece Theater was released on February 24th, 2009, debuting at number 4 on the Canadian albums charts with 5,000 copies sold in its first week. The lead single, Cross My Heart, and reached number 15 on the Canadian Hot 100. It was nominated for 4 MMVAs in 2009 and went triple platinum in Canada. The second single single All to Myself, released in May 2009, peaked at number 11 and also went triple platinum. That same year, the band toured with Carly Rae Jepsen on the Beside You tour before finally crossing over to the US in 2010. The album received positive reviews from critics and is considered to be a cult classic in the pop punk scene for its symphonic rock sound, combining strings and piano melodies with vicious drums and intense guitar riffs, somehow not being able to overrun the gut-wrenching screams of Josh Ramsay. I don't believe I warned y'all yet, but I will be glazing this man for the rest of the video. The band probably doesn't know what that means, they're a bunch of boomers. Anyway, this album is great. Contains absolutely phenomenal single choices that make you want to dance, rave, and cry. The deep cuts are also special too. The anthemic Perfect will always pull at the heartstrings for its message about the music industry, expecting artists to be what everyone wants them to be, with the messier Sing Sing tackling a similar message, being pressured to put this album out and have it meet the expectations of the fans, the label, and himself, losing sleep, not eating, trying to be stable, while critics tell them to stop whining because they're successful. Why drink to your continued success? At least he's in a better place, as we're reminded on the piano-led power ballad Lover Dearest, a love letter to his addiction that is now in the past, full of conflictions. At first, he wonders if he needs it, but wishes it would leave him. It's so easy to fall back into the cycle. By the end, he asks this need for heroin to leave him alone. In comparison, Acadia is pure nostalgia with that bright acoustic guitar lead, where something brings you back to an older, sweet time, and eventually things can't go back to how they were. You no longer really fit in there. Remembering his old home, 1712 Acadia Road, all those memories, but there is this inner sadness as the home no longer stands. Acadia is gone for the better. It's time to move on. That's how you grow. Now, the 5 singles. There is a reason each of these went at least 2 times platinum. Undeniably catchy melodies proving out the gate that Ramsey can write hooks like no other. Successfully balanced but fun striking guitar riffs, percussion that is aggressive but loud enough that it hits this sweet spot on your ears. Music videos are absolute gold too. Go watch them. Especially Celebrity Status, with these like comedic imitations of TV shows and commercials where Josh finally gets to show off his acting skills again. I can never work in a cubicle the same after seeing All to Myself. That song, Cross My Heart, and Celebrity Status are straight charming pop punk bangers. So much energy that will just overwhelm you sometimes. Sure, the messages aren't insanely deep, they're pop songs. Josh has talked about this before. There is this side of me that wants to do artistic things that would never be on the radio. Then, there's the other side that loves pop music. In Marianas Trench, it's me trying to figure out how to have both of these things coexist. I want you all to myself. I would do anything for you. Cross my heart, hope to die. Taking a dig at celebrity culture while looking around, wondering what he would be like if he wasn't focused on his own fame on Celebrity Status. It contains some of my favorite guitarists from the group, especially on that final chorus, where everything comes together following that wicked solo, taking us to the tearjerkers. Good to You and Beside You. If you're looking for some haunting harmonies, the chorus on Beside You sends tingles down your spine, clashing with the gentler strings, acoustic guitar, and timpani, vowing to be right beside someone recovering from addiction while fighting your own demons. Piano rock ballad Good to You will always have a place in my heart. I first heard it at the start of the COVID-19 pandemic, scared out of my mind of how the world would turn out, wishing to be good to my family and friends during this stressful time, and having them there would be good for me too. There's 2 versions of this song. I prefer the Jessica Lee version. That one's a lot more cleanly produced. Both women did their thing at the end of the day. It's nice to have a feature on a Marianas Trench track that is quite rare in their catalog. Now that we've discussed the non-concept songs, let's handle this pocket symphony, shall we? He put together these 3 songs, hoping to have one to choose from before going with all 3. The first one appears to be based off someone in a dark place, trying to escape and find happiness, telling himself that being this broken wreck of a human is a part he plays and that he'll never be able to recast, scouting for moments of joy where he can hide from his problems, possibly through music. It's an escape for him where he's able to express his flaws and insecurities. However, opening up like this is quite difficult, hard to let out, containing incredible string arrangements, harsh percussion, splendid guitar riffs, and a outstanding vocal performance, really. A progressive piece switching from acapella, just strings, a singular guitar melody, and a synthesizer lead on the bridge accompanied by more harmonies. They throw so much at you, but it somehow doesn't overwhelm you. It feels just right. a masterpiece if you will. The second one sees a bit of growth, where the man appears to be inching closer to escaping the toxic place he was in before, once again progressing from a harmonic intro to more string and drum arrangement. It feels like an interlude into some of the more anxious sections of the record following it. And now, the final song. Holy shit, where do I begin? This is nearly 7 minutes, and the thing you'll notice about Marianas Trench is that they use each and every minute of that runtime. Basically, they managed to mash up specific melodies throughout the album and turn it into a medley that sound incredible. Even referencing Say Anything from Fix Me. They didn't just copy and paste snippets and call it a day. They completely re-recorded everything here, with some of the lines being in a different key from the original. It's a masterpiece that is beyond words. You just have to listen and reflect. Enjoy it. Seeing all these songs come together for one last curtain call, it makes you feel like you complete a journey by the end. One of the most genius things I've heard in my life. Josh proves himself as an absolute beast, not only when it comes to pure vocals, but as an engineer. He's just a mastermind. It's pure art, pure poetry. How you take 11 songs with different keys, tempos, and make it sound this good. Now, they do add new lyrics to help finish this masterpiece theater story once and for all. Losing sleep over finding this happiness he so dearly desires, believing it will be the key to all his issues. But as the song goes on, he starts to run into an identity crisis where he reveals he needs to accept himself as a person before he can find the happiness he desires. He's been in this state for so long, believing everything outside of his own body is the key to what he wants. It's like he barely knows who he even is. He wonders how it even got this bad in the first place. Never going back to the drawing board and figuring out what started these issues. Chasing something instead of confronting his demons head on. Always seeking comfort. Trying to structure this masterpiece theater to keep him safe because he's truthfully too scared to fight. For now, he has to accept that he won't find this perfect comfort until he can accept himself. If you thought this was a great concept album, boy, you ain't ready for Ever After. This is one of the coolest albums I've heard in my life. The band was at the peak of their commercial success throughout 2011, 2013. They were touring everywhere, winning multiple awards and putting on some of the most ridiculous live performances ever. Josh had a few solo quests, I guess. He sang the Transformers Rescue Bots theme song and voiced the scream of Banshee in X-Men First Class. Their concerts were now including props, costumes, and dramatic stage setups based on a fantasy theme that would represent their third album. Josh went all out on stage with stunts, crowd surfing, and other wild antics. Whenever Josh would jump into the crowd at a concert, his pants ended up ripped and torn. Plus, at each performance, he wears a bra that a fan throws at him on stage. Other insane activities were them ripping off their pants, why not, performing in their underwear, and singing while swinging from the ceiling. Plus, during the Ever After tour, Josh kicked off the show by coming out of a wind-up toy. It was said to be an unforgettable experience, all beginning with the first single from the album, Havent Had Enough, released on July 19th, 2011, a massive hit in Canada, reaching the top 10 and being certified 3 times platinum. So the band began their embark into a more poppy, electronic sound that was obviously huge during the 2010s club boom. You gotta adapt, creating those catchy pop songs for the radio that Josh could write in his sleep. With the album being bigger than pop music itself, in my opinion, the band revealed that the album would play continuously without breaks between tracks. Incredibly smooth transitions, creating an hour-long piece of uninterrupted music. Production started in early 2011 for this hour-long song, if you truly look at it, swapping between genres effortlessly. Their most diverse, genre-bending record by far. It was released on November 21st, 2011. It somehow only peaked at number 8 on the charts. Oh, it was going up against Adele, Rihanna, and Nickelback. That makes sense. At least it went double platinum. Okay, let me tell you the tale of Ever After. It even has its own booklet. Spoiler warning, obviously. The story follows Joshua Ramsay and his adventures in the fantasy realm of Toyland. It begins with Josh, who wakes up in a land ruled by Queen Carolina, who runs a factory making toys that steal people's hearts. Josh sets out on a quest to find Porcelain, the missing adopted daughter of the former king, who had her heart stolen by Carolina, locked up in a toy box filled with everything else she has stolen over the years. Porcelain possesses one half of the key that can unlock a chest, which is his way to return home. Josh would search and search before resting for the night. In his dream, he was approached by the intoxicating beauty Carolina, asking him to join her, and he could have everything he could ever want. Josh turned her down, causing her to vanish. He woke up in a forest late at night, seeing something in the distance. A young girl, the lost warrior Porcelain, wearing the half key around her neck. Due to her heart being stolen, she barely remembers her life feeling empty since. However, just like Josh, she wasn't a toy. Josh told Porcelain his plan, and she agreed to pursue it. But first, they had to find the stuttering wise man before the toy soldiers found them. He was the brother of the outcast king, the former prince, now living in a secret cave, still managing to have a heart intact. The wise man revealed that Carolina had seduced her way into the royal family, marrying the king and breaking his heart after stealing Porcelain's. He was too weak to fight her, so he ran away with the prince. This was the start of Carolina's takeover. The former prince had a plan to sneak into Carolina's factory through a secret entrance and assemble the soldiers born without hearts to join them and overthrow Carolina. Face the music when it's dire. Face your issues instead of avoiding them. Rebellion began. They arrived in the courtyard outnumbered, but the rebellious toy soldiers needed to just buy time for the prince, Porcelain, and Josh to sneak into the tower to open the toy box and free the kingdom. Waiting at the toy box was Carolina. The queen attacked Josh, unable to resist her power, grasping at his heart. In the nick of time, Porcelain and the prince managed to unlock the toy box. How? Porcelain had only one half of the key. Well, it turns out that the other half of the key was the stuttering prince's own heart. He sacrificed himself to save the kingdom. The chest was open, filling the entire tower with a bright light, joyful screaming from the courtyard, and Porcelain managed to overpower Carolina before tossing her through the tower window, crashing to the ground below, later being consumed by the toy soldiers. The king retook the throne. Porcelain and Josh remained in Toyland as their original home no longer felt like home, and they all lived happily ever after. Or at least, that's what's being told on paper. The videos for this album tell a completely different story. One where Josh's happily ever after might not be so soon. Here's my theory. What if I told you that this album is out of order? But that makes no sense. Why would an album that perfectly transitions between each song be out of order? I believe this album is purposely out of order to make it seem like there's a happy ending. Everything flows so perfectly, when in reality, it's supposed to be a mess. Instead of facing the music when it's dire, he makes up this story to fool himself into a happy ending to make himself feel less guilty for falling for someone that might not be the best thing, denying reality and refusing to accept the consequences of his actions. Let me cook. We're gonna dive straight into it. We'll be here for a minute. The title track introduces us the real story through a different lens with a distinct melody floating in the air, almost like a narrator from the future, cringing at his past mistakes. This man used to be someone until he met this girl, Carolina, who took control of his life, ultimately ruining his vision of love, wasting time trying to be this picture-perfect couple, doing whatever she says. Sounds familiar to Masterpiece Theater. She threatened to leave multiple times. Josh begs her to stay, as she could be his perfect little ever after, being what she wants him to be, like a toy soldier and doing whatever to fit her image. He then tries to prove to everyone he's changing as a person, wanting to fight for a new relationship instead of letting this one break his heart for the rest of eternity. Wrapping up the cinematic, ever-changing title track, introducing his story of a failed, abusive relationship, once beautiful, now turned into an important lesson, facing the music to finally wish it goodbye and move on. The blissful strings, pounding percussion, roaring guitars, powerful singing, and variations of instruments truly bring it all together. With that, let the real story begin. Ah yes, the electro pop rock of Havent Had Enough, with one of the catchiest hooks I've ever heard. It's still somehow very much their style, even if it contains more pop elements, including that infectious synth melody, funky guitars, and danceable drum arrangement. Josh delivers a hell of a performance here, as expected, especially that powerhouse of a scream on the bridge, full of so much energy and an all-around just perfectly well-crafted pop song, giving a relationship another try. But if we're focusing on the story here, especially the music video, this is Josh being approached by Carolina at a club and having his jaw dropped. Notice how Carolina out of the gate believes they might not be the best thing. Either way, Josh continues to follow and chase her. Suddenly the boy is under her spell, doing everything to get her attention, breaking out a whole choreographed dance. Carolina tricks Josh into thinking she's in danger when he's really just using him for sympathy. He's clearly being used and toyed with, but Josh still believes they're meant to be, pleading for Carolina to give him a chance and losing control of his own thoughts that she takes advantage of, swallowed by chaos. When Carolina gives him a chance, he sees this as their wedding day, when in reality, Josh is just one of her toy soldiers, which is the best thing in her case. She gets another boy wrapped around her finger to play with. Taking us to more electro-pop rock action on Toy Soldiers, where Josh has found himself to be under control, intending to follow her lead every step of the way. He's her biggest fan, just so grateful to be part of her life, hoping to give her the love he believes she wants. The fact he has to ask questions is worrying. Please don't fail Josh, Carolina. To him, you're his local hero and role model. Josh is so far gone, he starts making remarks he never thought he'd be making about someone, claiming he knows Carolina, not like everyone else does. They're meant to be, and if he can't have her, no one else can. Out of context, this sounds like an overly obsessive stan writing the band letters. Oh wait, it literally was. Josh put himself in their shoes, in this case, hoping desperately to acquire the love of Carolina. When she does give him the time of day, it leads to a fallout. The second video for the record, where we can clearly see the abuse Carolina is putting Josh through, doing this while dangling that key, which I've seen as his escape. Josh could leave Carolina if he truly wanted to. It's not like Carolina is forcing him here. She's fine. She could just fall back on one of her other toys. But what will Josh do? He chooses to stay anyway. He's so infatuated with her that he can't leave, running away from all the toxic signs and red flags as you can see by those landmines. All he wants is this ever after that he sees in Carolina, so perfectly polite and composed, knowing that she is seeing other men. It hurts him inside. He doesn't care if she is loyal to him, he just wants her any chance he gets, fighting for her attention, believing he deserves better than her. I mean, he does deserve better, but just someone better than her. Making this post-breakup ballad and being unable to get over her moving on while he's still crushed hit even more, backed up by an emotional, vulnerable performance, a ton of vocal layering, memorable string arrangements, intense drum work, striking guitar riffs, and a mix of buzzing electronics continuing the cinematic feel that just feels right, catered to the radio. Another fantastic highlight, ending with Carolina taunting Josh with another side piece, causing him to fall to the floor, as he has to face the fact that he is on the B team. Carolina has another partner on her A team that she cares more about. There's possibly more he doesn't even know about, all under her spell. Josh is just one of her many sex dolls, a foolish one that she will eventually dispose of when plan A goes right. Despite all the red flags, Josh wants to make it official with Carolina. He has never fallen for someone this hard. He's aware he's blindly head over heels for her. She plays hard to get. She's good with words and likes to make her men beg for it. She'll play you and make you believe she truly likes you, just like on Havent Had Enough, just to feed her ego and crush you. I've always found this track to be incredibly underrated in terms of melody. That pre-chorus absolutely rules. When the guitar comes in alongside the infectious electronics bundle of harmonies and drums, a lot of fun. even if the lyrics are deeply pathetic. So desperate for her attention that he'll accept any measures just to be by her side. The third video, Desperate Measures, is pure ridiculousness and has a lot going on in it. Carolina appears to be finally giving him attention, putting him in uncomfortable situations he's not used to being in, playing him like a toy, as you can see clearly, poking and throwing him around. Carolina forces him to dance in his underwear, become a cowboy, join a boy band, cheerlead, while teasing and humiliating him. This is what Josh gets for whoring himself out for Carolina. Payback is a motherfucker, as it all goes wrong. It's originally based on one taking desperate measures to make it further in the music industry, including having a piece of American Dream. Yep, that line made it on the radio. Back to the story. Josh finally snaps following the second verse after being humiliated for too long and temporarily stops listening to her demands. This causes Carolina to freak out and have a tantrum, physically abusing him. However, Josh gets out of bed and blows sleeping powder in Carolina's direction. This causes her to fall asleep and seemingly break his trance and escaping in the crowd of toys. Carolina wakes up to realize one of them is missing from the pack. Just another excellent melodic electro-pop rock track containing a high-pitched version of the Ever After melody heard in the beginning, accompanied by more tight guitar riffs, vocal harmonies galore, and an unbeatable performance from our frontman. Now, it all seems to fade to black and gets incredibly quiet on this next one. A rippling synth and the glimpses of choir vocals poke through the mix. Josh's vocals are a lot more gentle and the track appears to build from there. It's Marianas Trench's own Fix You. A slow and simple melody incorporates this warm keyboard after the first hook, bringing in a single guitar on the second, another guitar and some other subtle bell on the second hook. Soon that Ever After melody comes in strong, building into a breakdown of synthesizers, roaring guitars, and striking drum work before it all fades out. The track's purpose is quite strange. It sounds like a standard love song trying to calm down your partner or yourself. However, something bigger to the story is being formed here. Porcelain. This is Josh trying to build himself up again after seemingly distancing himself from Carolina, replacing her with the perfect girl he's wanted all along. She's supposed to be the one that contains the key to his freedom. Meanwhile, Carolina is now chasing him alongside her other toy soldiers into the fourth video for Stutter. If you ever fall for someone, try to talk to them, and end up stuttering out of nervousness, possibly excitement, that's what this is. A stomp and clap anthem that sets the dance floor on fire with a slick bass line, bright catchy harmonies, tambourine, driving guitarists backed up by electronics and playful drum work. It has a monster of a hook that some people might find offensive, especially those suffering from the disorder personally. Don't take it that seriously. We've all been nervous to the point where we trip over our words. We're all human. Looking into this story, Josh arrives at a swing dance club where he chokes a sailor unconscious to steal his clothes and disguise as a normal person. Interesting. He happens to run into Porcelain, who tells him to take a key and they have a boogie on the dance floor. I want to know this choreography so badly for the upcoming show. What happens is that Josh gets overly excited, or stutters, that he launches the key into someone's drink. After this, trouble shows up. Josh reclaims the key, but he sees Carolina in the distance looking for him. He tries to hide the best he can, but Carolina and her crew catch him. One guard punches Ramsey that leaves him tripping and landing on some dude's groin area. He gets picked up and punched again. This leads to an all-out brawl among all men there, of course. Amidst the chaos, Josh and Porcelain manage to sneak out, ending in Carolina snapping her fingers. It all goes to black. What could have happened? What went wrong? The truth is a hard pill to swallow. Unfortunately, everything mentioned during and after Desperate Measures never really happened. I hate to break it to y'all, Porcelain isn't real. Porcelain was Josh trying to hide and mask the guilt he felt falling for someone who isn't the best thing. He is pretending to meet this girl with a key to save him from being under control, and she would be his happily ever after ending. That is what Josh feels like he deserves, deciding to rewrite his story in his dreams to make it sound better while laying next to Carolina in bed. taking desperate measures to achieve this ever after story. He's guilty that she is all he has, fantasizing a better ending instead of facing the music when it's dire, because things are about to get dire. By now drags everything back to reality. It might have the most important video. It truly reveals the entire situation that was hidden behind closed doors. A power ballad, accompanied by an acoustic guitar lead and bass hit on the verses, breaking into the hardest hitting guitar riffs of the entire record. Striking percussion and dramatic string arrangements. That chorus is unbelievably powerful. Let's talk about this bridge though. This has to be his best vocal performance on the album, especially when he lets out that dramatic, long high note as the instruments fade out for a bit, before hitting you with the gut punch of a final chorus where it all comes back swinging, only helped by another powerful long note from Josh. How can one of us feel blessed when the other one's so lost? That is what Josh has been this entire story, it seems, only realizing now what he's walked himself into. Let's look at the video though. Josh reveals that before Carolina, he used to be someone, just like he said on the title track. After her, it all changed for the worse. Doing whatever she commanded, nothing else mattered because he believed they were in love. I mean, come on, they got married by an Elvis impersonator, the truest love you can get. Throughout the video, it displays their love that goes from seemingly innocent to toxic, where Carolina appears to drug him as they explore the desert. It becomes all the more true that sometimes the one you want is not the one you need. As he realizes he doesn't know her as well as he'd like to, and clearly she also doesn't. Towards the second verse, things pick up. Not only does Josh reveal that he has given up his keys or his freedom for her, he decides to choose her over his lifelong friends he takes her to meet as they see right through her. Wannabe Bonnie and Clyde decide to rob them, partying and making love beside their wealth. Josh has fallen for pure greed and lust over true love. When I think about this stage of the relationship, the hot, sweaty nature of their actions, it has always reminded me of Truth or Dare, an electro pop rock club banger that just reeks of temptation and dirty little secrets. Another underrated deep cut that could have gotten the single treatment if necessary. There's something so dark and intimate about it, from the pitched down vocal sample to the punchy bass hits to the driving guitar groove and solos to the eerie synths and drum work, emulating the couple's dirtiest desires. It makes me feel like an absolute badass. Please put this on the set list for the Michigan show. I will go wild. Back to By Now. Their party ends up being crashed. Josh gets the shit kicked out of him by his old friends. They're trying to stop and snap him out of this trance Carolina has on him, but her intoxicating power is too hard to resist. Josh didn't realize how long he's been spinning out of control, letting sex and money guide him, losing himself to a dream of a happily ever after, is unsure when the dream will end, real life will begin, until he realizes it's gonna end. His friends leave him behind. Carolina continues to drug and abuse him before putting him out of his misery in the middle of the desert. I've seen people theorize this is Carolina literally killing him. That could be true. I just see this as Josh getting dumped for good and having his heart broken. Instead of facing the music, his delusional mind makes up its own history to make sense of it all, as we've seen in the past 4 videos, making up a new story with a fairy tale ending that he deserves, where he woke up in the strange place of Toyland. He had many times to take that key and leave, but he didn't. Now, Carolina leaves Josh to die. At least his friends came back for him, proving that the boys will always be there for you. Hell yeah! If this story tells you anything, don't be a simp. That's simple. The rest of the record feels like Josh realizing Carolina has left him behind and that there is no happy ending. You can hear the closing melody of So Soon towards the end of the By Now video. This is a piano and string-led piece passionately sung, describing his shock at the relationship coming to an end and being unable to accept the fact that Carolina has another lover in her life, as we've learned over this journey. Josh was always just part of the B team. It makes the line, "Why can't you just be lonely?" make more sense to me. I used to hate that line on first listen, but hearing that in this context, it's more heartbreaking than I ever knew. What stands out about this track will always be the ending. dark, moody synth melody and choir sample just sounds like pure evil. Gives me chills. Whether it's Josh dying in the desert or his spirit being broken, it's chilling. I just noticed what is being said by the choir. Miserere may have mercy on me. I don't think the band has any religious ties from what I know, but this situation leads Josh to the last desperate call he can make. Finally, we've reached the end. The closer, No Place Like Home, is a masterpiece on a production level, beginning with acapella harmonic goodness that Josh can arrange in his sleep at this point, before the synth hits come in as a banjo and light guitar fades into the mix, electric guitar pickups that go wild, transitioning into a full-on breakdown that incorporates true for air. Then it all slows down to a sound palette that reminds me of machinery in a factory, referencing toy soldiers the entire time. It inspired a pretty popular animation. The harsh, singular piano chord, later adding strings, drums, and various vocal harmonies picking up in tempo as it goes. Truly something magical, as it all fades away to introduce the ever so familiar Ever After melody, building up to another thrilling range of guitar riffs, until Josh lets out this absolutely gut-wrenching scream that I could never hit in my life, concluding with more electric guitar and drum action before twinkling chimes finish with that fancy feel to it. It was going to be hard to top their last closer. I think they're pretty neck and neck. But yeah, this is Josh realizing there is no happy ending to this story. The relationship is now a grave, yet trying to convince Carolina to come back into his life, getting put on the assembly line, possibly trying to better himself after that disaster, before finding true love ever after within his inner self, and being satisfied with his new life by the end. A growing point that we all needed. He may not have found fulfillment for a lover, but he found something for himself. Before Marianas Trench came into my life, I missed them so bad. We're going to discuss more in part 2. A major achievement in Josh Ramsay's songwriting, the greatness of Astoria, the mysterious phantoms, and their latest ambition, Haven. I hope you found greatness in this band. Please listen to them. They deserve more fans. It's not too late for TikTok to make these guys famous outside of Canada. Anyway, I'll see y'all next week. I'm excited to be doing this. Make sure to love all, and peace.